Stephen Curry has just made a huge announcement about LeBron James, and it has the entire NBA talking. With LeBron leaving the Lakers, Curry's message has sparked a flood of speculation. But one part of what he said has fans convinced something even bigger is coming. Could the two legends finally become teammates? Let me catch you up. LeBron James is done with the Los Angeles Lakers. That sentence alone, just those 9 words, is enough to reroute the entire summer. But what happened next is the part nobody saw coming. LeBron James is running it back, but not with the Los Angeles Lakers. He's informed the franchise that he will look to play elsewhere for the 2026-27 season. That wasn't a retirement speech. That wasn't a slow fade. That was a door slamming shut on 8 years of purple and gold, and a window thrown wide open for every team with the nerve to walk through it. And Stephen Curry didn't just walk through it, he sprinted. Clutch Points insider Brett Siegel shared new details on just how involved Golden State stars plan to be in recruiting James, reporting that both Stephen Curry and Draymond Green will be directly involved, with attempting to lure LeBron James to the Warriors in free agency. Not watching, not waiting, directly involved. That's Curry making a call he's never had to make before, reaching across the court to the man who defined the opposite side of the sport's defining rivalry, and asking him to be a teammate. The latest buzz on Tuesday, just hours before the free agency window officially opens, suggests that Curry and Green will play a part in trying to bring the 23-year veteran to Golden State. And from the sounds of it, the Warriors franchise believes it can put together a strong pitch to sign James. The NBA world didn't just notice, it stopped. 3 voices came in loud immediately. 3 different reactions, 3 different reads on the same moment, and all of them told you something real about what's actually at stake here. Kendrick Perkins was first. ESPN analyst Kendrick Perkins put the spotlight squarely on Stephen Curry, writing on X that Steph needs to make that call, not Draymond. That's not a throwaway social media post. That's a former champion who's watched this league for 2 decades saying, in plain language, that the hierarchy of this moment matters. If the Warriors are serious, it can't be anyone else at the front of the room. Stephen A. Smith had his own take, discussing the massive impact a Steph-LeBron pairing would have on the NBA, framing it explicitly in terms of box office appeal. And that framing matters too, because this isn't just about wins and losses. It's about what 2 of the game's all-time names on the same side of the court would mean for the sport itself. Stephen A. has never been shy about reading the entertainment value of NBA storylines, and this one, he said, would dwarf nearly all of them. Former NBA veteran Kendrick Perkins tempered expectations further though, noting that, as someone who played 14 seasons in the league, he's aware of the various tactics agents use to secure lucrative contracts for their clients. And he suggested that all these trade talks could be just one of them. So Perkins was doing 2 things at once, demanding Curry step up and recruiting hard, while simultaneously suggesting the whole thing might be LeBron's camp running a leverage play. That's the tension at the heart of this entire story. Mark Stein, one of the most connected insiders in the business, didn't hedge. He put it clean. The Golden State Warriors are at the front of the line in pursuit of LeBron James, per NBA insider Mark Stein. ESPN's Shams Charania reported on Monday that the Warriors had a goal to assemble a Big Four of James, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Anthony Davis, who currently plays for the Washington Wizards. A Big Four, 4 players, each one, at their peak, would have been the best player on most NBA rosters. All 4, on the same squad, under one of the greatest coaching minds the game has produced. LeBron, AD, Curry, Draymond, and Kerr, turning their final acts into one more title run before the credits roll. The Warriors are current favorites to land James in free agency with -500 odds per DraftKings, with the Cavaliers at +300, Heat at +1,000, and Spurs at +2,000. The market has spoken. The public has spoken. Curry's announcement has given the whole thing a spine, a real tangible shape to what was, only days ago, just a fan theory. While a move to the Warriors seemed far-fetched, Curry was reportedly willing to do whatever it takes to land him, including meeting with James directly. As insider Brett Siegel put it, pairing him with Stephen Curry is going to be something that the Warriors are going to pursue over the next few weeks. It seemed very doubtful. It seemed low percentage. Now it's kind of questionable. Now there's going to be some legs to this. Questionable. That's what it went from. To see just how fast this thing moved, you have to understand where it started. And that means going back to LeBron's last night as a Laker. Despite his age and the advanced basketball miles on his body, James averaged 20.9 points, 7.2 assists, and 6.1 rebounds in 60 games as one of the most productive players in the league. Alongside Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, James helped lead the Los Angeles Lakers to the number 4 seed in a stacked Western Conference. He was still producing at a level that most players 2 decades younger couldn't match. But the Lakers' ceiling had changed around him, with Doncic and Reeves each sidelined for at least part of the Lakers' first-round series against the Houston Rockets. James took over to lead Los Angeles to a 4-2 win. But the Lakers fell in the second round via a 4-game sweep by the Oklahoma City Thunder. A sweep in the second round. And whatever goodwill that first-round push had purchased, 4 straight losses tore it clean off the wall. LeBron said on his podcast, Mind the Game, that the Lakers' loss to Oklahoma City wasn't due to being outworked or outcoached, but being out-talented. That's a 41-year-old man looking his situation in the face and calling it what it is. He didn't want sympathy. He wanted a better team. And if the Lakers weren't going to be that team anymore, then he was going to find one that was. The fuse had been lit long before this morning's news. Rich Paul, LeBron's agent at Clutch Sports, had been signaling it for weeks. When James picked up his player option last offseason, he released a statement that indicated he was not fully satisfied with how the Lakers were operating. LeBron wants to compete for a championship, his agent Rich Paul told ESPN at the time. He knows the Lakers are building for the future. He understands that, but he values a realistic chance of winning it all. That statement, dropped quietly in the middle of last summer, was LeBron drawing a line. He was telling the Lakers and the league that his tolerance for transition season had a limit. The Lakers had signaled their intent to build around the 27-year-old Doncic, rather than continuing to prioritize the 41-year-old James, who was entering unrestricted free agency. That's not an insult. That's just the math of franchise building. But for a man who spent 23 years never accepting a secondary role, it landed like a closing door. LeBron leaves Los Angeles as the rare superstar who gave a storied franchise a title in the back half of his career and then handed off the keys on his way out. The Lakers wanted him back, made that clear, and ultimately accepted a decision that was never fully theirs to control. Jeannie Buss put out her statement. LeBron James is one of the greatest athletes in history, the Lakers president said. We will always be thankful for his 8 years with the Lakers, including the title he led us to in 2020 under the toughest imaginable circumstances, and the countless records he broke in purple and gold. We wish him all the best in the future, both on the court and off. He will always be a cherished part of the Lakers family. And then LeBron responded. Short, simple, something close to a goodbye. On June 30, James posted on X, "No thank you. Truly an honor to wear the purple and gold while trying to continue the greatness and legacies that came before me. Hope I made a few proud during my stint. 8 years, a championship, a legacy entry, all of it folded into a few dozen words and a fist emoji. The era was over. The James era in Los Angeles was over. What comes next, for both sides, starts tonight. And what comes next is Golden State." Before we get into the full mechanics of how this potential alliance would work, the money, the roster construction, the path to a championship, it's worth understanding just how long this particular dream has lived in the Warriors organization. Golden State has explored James' possibilities before. NBC Sports Bay Area reported in 2025 that the Warriors had tried to acquire James around the 2023-24 trade deadline, and that their interest had not disappeared. That was 2 years ago. They were willing to pull the trigger then, and they couldn't get it done. But the idea never died, it just went into a drawer, waiting for the right moment to come back out. Even as the Golden State Warriors publicly discussed taking a step back from the championship or bust mentality that has defined them for the past decade, this team is never actually far from taking a big swing. According to a report by Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, there is growing momentum toward the Warriors making a legitimate run at signing James this offseason. And the moment that made it real, the domino that turned all of this from internet speculation into actual headlines, wasn't LeBron's decision to leave, it was Draymond's. Draymond Green opted out. That sounds like a small move. In the context of this story, it's the thing that made everything else possible. Golden State Warriors forward. Draymond Green declined his $27.7 million player option to become a free agent. Sources told ESPN's Shams Charania. This move gives the Warriors flexibility to pursue LeBron James in free agency and Anthony Davis via trade. Green didn't opt out because he wanted more money. He opted out because the Warriors needed cap room, and he was willing to give it to them. That's a veteran making a calculated sacrifice for the chance at something bigger. unless you were under a rock on Monday. You know by now that the Golden State Warriors are making a real run at LeBron James and Anthony Davis, a coup that keeps becoming more plausible, if not probable. First, on Monday, Draymond Green declined his $27.7 million player option for the 2026-27 season. Then, on Tuesday, James told the Lakers that he's not coming back and will instead land elsewhere in free agency. Immediately, the Warriors were viewed as the frontrunners for LeBron. That sequence, Green out, LeBron out, Warriors at the front of the line, happened inside 24 hours. The offseason moved at that speed, and it set the stage for Curry to step up and make his announcement. Curry wasn't going to let this sit. He'd been watching the board for weeks, and when the pieces moved, he moved with them. Siegel reported that Curry plans to meet with LeBron prior to the start of free agency. League sources telling us at clutch points that the Warriors are very much open to pursuing LeBron James, and they plan to do so this offseason in free agency, Siegel said. That's Curry, the face of the franchise, the man whose legacy is already cemented in 4 championships, and the greatest shooting career in NBA history, reaching out personally to the man who was his fiercest rival for a decade and saying, "Come play with me." The Warriors' interest is part of the speculation around James's next move, while also noting his relationships with Curry, Green, and Warriors coach Steve Kerr. Those connections matter. James and Curry played together for Team USA under Kerr, and James has spent years publicly praising Curry's game. LeBron won gold with Curry, Davis, and Kerr in 2024 with Team USA, and the basketball fit was obvious. LeBron said his pairing with Curry felt effortless because they play basketball the right way. And that is the sentence that stands at the center of all of this. The right way. Coming from LeBron James about Stephen Curry. You don't say that about a guy you don't want to play with. Curry and James formed a strong duo during the Olympics, meshing well to help Team USA bring home a gold medal. Steve Kerr served as head coach, which already provides James some familiarity, as he has played under him before. That Paris gold wasn't just a championship, it was a proof of concept. 2 players who spent years trying to beat each other, finally running the same plays, feeding off each other's instincts, and winning. The question is whether that proof of concept can be turned into an actual NBA season. Golden State has built its whole summer around this chase, and Curry and Green are not sitting back waiting on it to happen. Free agency opened Tuesday evening, and James now holds the only answer left to give. That's where we are right now. One player with all the leverage, one team with all the hunger, and one announcement that lit a fuse that is still burning. To understand why Curry's announcement lands the way it does, you have to understand what it means for 2 men who spent the better part of a decade trying to take each other apart on the biggest stage the sport has. The NBA's biggest rivalry over the last decade has been the battles between LeBron James and Stephen Curry. The 2 icons competed against each other in several NBA Finals, Western Conference playoffs, and memorable regular season games. While familiarity led to natural tension between the icons, they also developed a tremendous amount of respect for each other. That respect didn't grow in spite of the competition, it grew because of it. You don't go 4 finals. Look across the court at someone who's doing to you what Curry was doing to LeBron and what LeBron was doing back, without walking away with something real for the other guy. The first full season that Adam Silver took over as the league's commissioner was the first year Curry and James played each other in the NBA Finals, starting a stretch of 4 straight campaigns of them meeting on the grand stage to crown a champion. 4 straight finals. 4 straight years of the same 2 faces, the same 2 logos, the same 2 philosophies of basketball colliding in June. That doesn't happen in any other era. That kind of sustained excellence between 2 competitors at their peaks is genuinely rare in the history of the sport. But the scoreboard between them is more complicated than people remember. LeBron didn't just absorb punishment, he gave as much as he got. Curry has the upper hand in the playoffs, beating James in 3 of the 4 finals they faced one another, as well as winning 17 of the 28 playoff games between them. James has him beat in the regular season with 14 wins on his side and 13 for Curry, 3-1 in the finals, but a virtual coin flip in the regular season. That asymmetry tells you something. LeBron's teams could compete with Golden State on most nights, but when the crown was actually on the line, Curry found a gear that was devastating and relentless and impossible to match for an entire series. Curry and the Warriors ultimately won 3 of the 4 matchups. Against James, and the Cleveland Cavaliers from 2015 to 2018. The rivalry between James and Curry would continue after James left the Cavs to join the Lakers in the Western Conference. James and the Lakers defeated Curry and the Warriors in the 2023 Western Conference semifinals in 6 games. So it went both ways, across cities, across conferences, across phases of both of their careers. LeBron got his revenge in 2023. Curry got his rings first. The accounting between them was never clean. And it wasn't just basketball, it was personal, it was cultural. It was the kind of rivalry that defined what you believed the game was supposed to be. On one side, you had the most physically complete basketball player who ever lived, the rare athlete who could impose his will through sheer force of body and mind, who made the game look like a chess match played at full sprint. On the other, the most technically gifted shooter in human history, a player who rewrote the spatial logic of the sport, who made defenses do things they'd never had to do before, and who won doing it with a smile that made it look somehow effortless. They weren't just different players, they were different arguments about what basketball could be. Warriors coach Steve Kerr weighed in on the rivalry's place in history, saying, "I think rivalries in general are defined by playoff matchups. That's kind of the history of the way we look at Wilt versus Bill Russell, Bird Magic. I think they had 3 finals confrontations. What would some of the other ones be? I don't know. Steph and LeBron has to be up there." That's not a coach being generous. That's a man who lived inside one side of that rivalry for years, acknowledging what it actually was. And Kerr's opinion matters now in a new way, because if this Warriors recruitment actually works, he becomes the coach of both of them. There's a younger chapter to this rivalry too, one that fans tend to forget because it didn't come with final stakes, but still had real weight. The Lakers beat the Warriors in the 2021 play-in tournament, with James finishing the 103-100 victory with 22 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. A 36-year-old LeBron, in a play-in game, still delivering a triple-double to eliminate the Warriors from postseason contention. That's the version of LeBron that refuses to cooperate with the narrative of decline, the one who keeps showing up when the stakes are real, regardless of what the calendar says about his age. James and Curry have also played against each other on Christmas Day 4 times. Both men have praised each other in recent years, with both mentioning how special it was to be teammates, after James drafted Curry to his All-Star team in 2021 and 2022. The experiences they shared as teammates at the All-Star game led to speculation about them joining forces in an official setting. So even at the height of the rivalry, even when they were trying to knock each other out of the postseason, there was a thread of genuine admiration running underneath it all. LeBron put Curry on his All-Star team. Curry has never said a word against LeBron that wasn't in competition. These aren't 2 men who hated each other. They were 2 men who respected each other too much to pretend the other one wasn't great. The Paris Olympics in 2024 was where the public got to see that thread become something tangible and warm and real. Though their rivalry had defined much of the modern NBA, James and Curry shared moments as teammates, most notably representing Team USA and winning gold in the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Watching those 2 men on the same side, running pick and roll, sharing glances on fast breaks, celebrating in the same direction, it hit differently than anything 2 rivals sharing a court had ever looked like. Because you knew what it had cost to get there. You knew how many times they'd lined up on opposite sides. They did team up on Team USA in the summer of 2024, helping deliver gold in France, thanks in part to the brilliance of both James and Curry. And that experience, gold in France, Steve Kerr on the sideline, the 2 of them moving in sync, didn't just prove they could coexist, it proved they could thrive together. It planted a seed that the Warriors organization has been watering ever since. But the 2025-26 season introduced something the rivalry had never seen before: absence. For the first time in a very long time, LeBron and Curry didn't share a court even once. Whenever the Warriors and Los Angeles Lakers played each other, it's less about the teams and more about enjoying Steph Curry and LeBron James sharing the same court. Unfortunately for both players, for both teams, and for both fan bases, that didn't happen this season. Not even once in the 4 games the 2 teams played against each other. That in itself was a loss for the entire league. The Lakers and Warriors played 4 times during the 2025-26 NBA regular season, but either James or Curry missed every one of those matchups. The earliest game between both teams this season was missed by James, who was still recovering from sciatica. The last 3 times the teams played, Curry missed the contest due to knee management. 4 chances, 0 meetings. The season went by and 2 of the most watchable players in NBA history never occupied the same floor. It's uncertain how many more Steph Curry versus LeBron James games the NBA will see. The NBA went an entire season without fans watching Curry and James battle for basketball supremacy for the first time in 6 years. That absence, that strange hollow where the rivalry used to be, made something clear to everyone paying attention. The clock on this era isn't just ticking, it's close to done. LeBron noticed. He said something about it that landed quietly, but carried real weight. They've been the faces of the league for a long time, and it's been fun to watch as a fan. Lakers coach JJ Redick said during his pregame press conference, "It's been fun to be a part of it the last couple of years." Adam Silver's NBA has been run by 2 players whose first names are even more recognizable than their last. Steph and LeBron. This is their league, their era. But for how much longer is the real question? Instead of going head-to-head against Curry next year, there's a scenario where James gets to play with him every single night. That sentence, dropped almost as a footnote in an April article, had become the entire conversation by June. The rivalry doesn't end at the finish line. It transforms into something else, something no one in this league has ever tried before at this level. And now that transformation has a name. It has a plan. It has Curry on the phone, ready to make the pitch that makes it real. Curry is the face of the franchise, the reason Golden State's title window still has urgency, and the player whose buy-in would matter most if the Warriors tried to reshape the roster around another superstar. That's the truth of this moment. Everyone can make noise. Draymond can text. Rich Paul can take calls from 30 different teams. But the only voice that actually closes this deal, if it gets closed, is Curry's. Perkins' comment cuts to the hierarchy of a superstar chase. Green can recruit. Curry can validate the entire plan. The Warriors' rumor is fascinating, but it is not simple. Nothing about this is simple, but the rivalry that forged it is exactly why there's a chance it works at all. This isn't just 2 superstars deciding they want to play together. If it were that easy, it would have happened already. The Warriors have a financial puzzle to solve, and the pieces are awkward, expensive, and moving. As noted by salary cap guru Yossi Goslin, who hosts the Third Apron podcast with CBS Sports' Sam Quinn. The Warriors are currently $32.5 million beneath the first apron, with $176.5 million devoted to the following 10 players: Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, Porzingis, Al Horford, Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, Guy Santos, Will Richard, first-round pick Yaxel Lindeborg, and second-round pick LeJay Jones. That's the starting point. $32.5 million in breathing room before you hit the ceiling. And in a league where player salaries have become tectonic in their scale, that's not as much as it sounds. This could crack open the door for the Warriors to pitch James on joining at the $15,1 non-taxpayer mid-level exception, while making some other tweaks to the roster that could make it even more appealing. The mid-level exception, that's the mechanism. LeBron James, 4-time champion, all-time scoring leader, the most dominant forward the game has ever produced, on the Warriors' books for $15.1 million. That's less than what some backup centers make, and it would represent something in the neighborhood of a 70% pay cut from what he's been earning in LA. But here's the thing, LeBron has never been a player who played for the money. He's played for the rings, and if he can see a path to one more ring at Chase Center, the money stops being the obstacle. Why is the Green contract decision important? Because now Green can sign a contract that pays him more over the long term, but less than the $27 million annually, with any savings able to be redirected to LeBron, as they aim to get him at a $15 million annual number to fit into the non-taxpayer mid-level exception slot. So Green takes the financial hit, shrinks his annual number, and clears the path for the big prize. That's team-first thinking of the highest order. A veteran star, already with rings, voluntarily compressing his own earning potential for the chance at one more run. You have to roster a minimum of 14 players, meaning the Warriors would have to add 4 more players for less than that $32.5 million number. Let's say the Warriors give LeBron the $15.1 million mid-level. That's 11 players with $17.4 million left to pay Green, and 2 more veteran minimum deals at $2.4 million each. So Green takes a little over $12 million in the first year, with max 8% increases, let's say a 3-year deal, for around $40 million. just for argument's sake. And the math works. The math works. Barely, but it works. Then there's the Anthony Davis ambition, the even bigger swing that would take this roster from very good to genuinely terrifying. ESPN's Shams Charania reported on Monday that the Warriors had a goal to assemble a big four of James, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Anthony Davis, who currently plays for the Washington Wizards. A big four built from four players who each, at various points, carried a franchise to a championship. Curry's rings, LeBron's rings, Davis's 2020 bubble title, Green's foundational greatness on the 2015, 2017, 2018, and 2022 teams. The combined trophy case would be the most loaded lineup since the 2016 Golden State squad, the one that lost a 3-1 lead and made history for all the wrong reasons. Sources say the Warriors hoped adding Davis would help lure LeBron from Los Angeles to the Bay Area once free agency officially opens. The pitch would be simple: reunite with AD, team up with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, play for Steve Kerr, and chase one more championship. With a roster of legends, that move by Green could give the Warriors the financial flexibility needed to sign James and also, as rumored, trade for Wizards star forward Anthony Davis, which would give Golden State a big four of Curry, James, Davis, and Green. There are more hurdles to clear to build out that dream roster, like trading Jimmy Butler's $56.8 million expiring salary to acquire Davis. But Green declining his player option was one of several steps. But the Davis piece hit a wall almost as fast as it was floated. For a stretch, the Warriors' bigger swing involved trading for Anthony Davis to assemble a true contender around Curry. That path now looks far less likely. An Anthony Davis trade to Golden State is considered unlikely, with the reporting indicating the Warriors are reluctant to move Jimmy Butler, and the team holding Davis showing no appetite for a deal. Golden State still wants James regardless, but the grander vision has cooled. Golden State would have to move Jimmy Butler and his $56.8 million contract, which is easier said than done given he's coming off an ACL injury. Add in the second apron restrictions and they'd be left with a roster built around two aging stars and very little room to add depth. So the dream of Curry, LeBron, Davis, Green is alive, but it's running on fumes. Washington doesn't want to sell. Golden State doesn't want to gut what it already has. Those are two hard constraints pressing against a very ambitious plan. The sign and trade option was floated as a possible workaround, and it's worth unpacking because it opens a completely different door. The Warriors' clearest path to signing James is with the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, worth roughly $15 million per season, which would still mark a 70% pay cut for LeBron. A sign and trade could be a different path to paying James more, but that would require Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, or Kristaps Porzingis heading out in the deal. A sign and trade means sending value back to the Lakers in exchange for LeBron's bird rights, which would allow Golden State to pay him a significantly larger number than the mid-level exception. Butler's exorbitant salary and ACL injury likely makes any deal a non-starter. On paper, Green could fit with the Lakers as they look for a defensive anchor, but his long-standing close relationship with James and their shared agent Rich Paul makes that seem less likely. Porzingis seems like the most likely of the three. Sign and trades require 3-year contracts, but they can include non-guaranteed years. Given Porzingis' upside, the Lakers may be willing to roll the dice on a 3-year, $75 million deal with only the first season guaranteed. And if that route works, LeBron's pay in Golden State jumps dramatically. A deal like that would allow the Warriors to pay LeBron around $30 to $35 million next season. Green could also decline his player option and re-sign an extension, with a lower salary in the first year to leave the Dubs more space below the first apron to use their mid-level exception for another addition, $30 to $35 million. That's still a significant cut from his market rate, but it's a number that says we value you like a superstar. Not we're doing you a favor, but Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul said 10 to 12 teams have checked in about adding LeBron this summer. So sign and trade options could also emerge. 12 teams, all of them making calls, all of them hoping LeBron's camp picks up. And somewhere in that pile of calls, Steph Curry's name shows up. Not as a front office employee, not as an agent, but as a player. As a teammate, that's the piece no other team can offer. Rich Paul has orchestrated this entire situation with the precision of someone who's done this before, which of course he has. What seems most likely is what the reports are already suggesting. James is looking at a negotiation with the Lakers, where Los Angeles has to choose between paying him $50 million or using that money to build out their roster. Having a real threat from Golden State gives him leverage. Curry making his pitch doesn't cost Golden State anything and quietly helps James no matter how things turn out. That's the other dimension of this entire drama. Even if LeBron never wears a Warriors jersey, the fact that Curry is making calls and Golden State is in the news as a serious destination puts heat on every other team at the table. Kendrick Perkins tempered expectations and poured cold water on the red-hot trade and free agency rumors. As someone who played 14 seasons in the NBA, Perkins is aware of the various tactics agents use to secure lucrative contracts for their clients, and he suggested that all these trade talks could be just one of them. Rich Paul's fingerprints are on all of it. The timing of the Warriors' leaks, the sudden silence from the Lakers camp. None of this is accidental. It's choreographed leverage at the highest level of the business. But here's why Perkins' skepticism doesn't fully hold. The Warriors have done the actual work. This isn't a rumor. They've moved chess pieces on the actual board. Golden State firmly believes that they are the frontrunners to land LeBron if he leaves the Los Angeles Lakers in free agency. Recent reports from Yahoo's Kevin O'Connor indicate that the Warriors are attempting to not only add James in free agency, but also trade for Davis to reunite the former Lakers teammates alongside Curry and Green. Clutch Points has since confirmed the Warriors' interest in such a scenario with team sources, although a level of doubt has been cast on their ability to pull this off. Internally, sources say the Warriors firmly believe they can make their LeBron dreams a reality. The front office believes it. The players are involved. The cap math has been done. This isn't a Twitter wish list. It's a plan. An imperfect, complicated, ambitious plan, but a plan nonetheless. And there's one more piece to the roster puzzle that nobody's talking about enough. Bronny. Bronny James remains under contract in Los Angeles after his deal became fully guaranteed at $2.3 million for the 2026-27 season. Barring a separate move, the Lakers will carry the son even as the father departs, an outcome few would have predicted when the two shared a backcourt as teammates. LeBron and Bronny played together in Los Angeles. That was a moment, but what happens next depends on where LeBron goes and whether any team is willing to bring both of them along for the ride. That's why Bronny could make sense as a league minimum contract for the Warriors. If his deal doesn't become fully guaranteed by the Lakers, the Warriors would be taking a shot on someone who has shown signs of being a productive rotation player in the NBA. The most likely path is Bronny returning after the Lakers guaranteed the remainder of his deal, but never say never. The possibility of LeBron finishing his career alongside his son in Golden State, playing for Steve Kerr next to Steph Curry. That's not just a basketball story. That's something larger. A generational arc closing in the most cinematic way imaginable. The question no one wants to spend too long on, because the fantasy is so good, is whether a Curry-LeBron Warriors team would actually be able to compete for a title, or whether it's a Hollywood sequel that gets the look right but misses the substance. Banking on a 38-year-old Curry and a 41-year-old LeBron would be an all-in gamble for one last title push, especially for a team that missed the playoffs in 2026. Let that land for a second. 38 and 41. Those aren't just numbers. They're marks on a timeline that in any previous generation would have meant both players were long retired. The fact that this conversation is even happening tells you something about who these two men are, but it doesn't make the challenge any less real. The Warriors, after losing Jimmy Butler to a torn right ACL midway through last season and falling to the Suns in the play-in tournament, could use some more talent if they hope to mount a credible challenge to the bigger, more dangerous Colossi currently standing astride the West. They fell to the Suns in the play-in, not the conference finals, not the second round, the play-in. That's how far down Golden State had slipped before this offseason reshuffled the deck. And yet, and this is the part that makes skeptics uncomfortable, LeBron is still playing at a level that makes the basketball case very real. He is far from a player in decline. James still put up close to 21 points a game last season, showing he can carry real weight on a contender even at this stage of his career. 20 points a game at 41. In a Western Conference that just swept him in the second round, the team around him wasn't good enough. He was still producing. That's the crucial distinction. Despite his age and the advanced basketball miles on his body, James averaged 20.9 points, 7.2 assists, and 6.1 rebounds in 60 games as one of the most productive players in the league. 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 20 points. That's not a passenger stat line. That's a player driving the offense, feeding teammates, cleaning the glass, and filling the box score with things that actually win games. If you plug that LeBron into a Curry Green system, suddenly the math on the court looks very different. The basketball fit between Curry and LeBron was on display for the world to see in Paris, and the people closest to it walked away impressed. The pitch would be obvious from a basketball standpoint. Curry remains one of the NBA's most dangerous offensive players, and James, even late in his career, would give Golden State another elite decision-maker who can punish defenses built to chase Curry around screens. That's the synergy. Curry pulls every defensive scheme in the world into a frenzy. Defenders flying over screens, chasing him through curls, terrified of giving him a clean look from 3. And all of that defensive attention creates lanes and mismatches that a player with LeBron's vision and finishing ability can exploit all night long. Curry remains one of the NBA's most dangerous offensive players, and James, even late in his career, would give Golden State another elite decision-maker who can punish defenses built to chase Curry around screens. The synergy between Curry's gravity and LeBron's ability to capitalize on the chaos that gravity creates. It's not speculative. They've done it before. In France, under Kerr, they won a gold medal, making exactly those reads, hitting exactly those shots, finding exactly those moments when the defense couldn't cover both of them at the same time. But the concerns are real, and they deserve a full airing, because anyone dismissing the complications isn't being honest about the challenge. The idea of Curry, James, Draymond Green, and Butler sharing the floor is packed with intelligence and experience, but not without issues. James and Butler both operate best with the ball in their hands and aren't reliable outside threats anymore. That clogs up the space Curry relies on to do his damage. Golden State's 2022 title run was built around shooting and versatile defenders who complemented Curry, not more ball-dominant players who can't shoot. That's the tension. The Warriors' championship DNA is built around spacing, around putting shooters in corners, giving Curry room to operate, clearing the lane for drives and pick-and-roll actions. LeBron, as magnificent as he is a black hole in an offense. Good teams need him to have the ball. The best offenses he's ever been part of were built to keep the ball in his hands so he could make decisions. That's the same thing Curry needs. 2 players who both need the ball to be at their best, sharing the same offense. It works in bursts, in Olympic Games, in short series. Whether it works over 82 nights is a different question. Steve Kerr, though, is perhaps the one variable that makes this particular version of the experiment more viable than any other setting. For the past 12 seasons, Kerr has coached Curry's Warriors and competed against James on the Lakers and Cavaliers. He knows both players at a level of intimacy that goes beyond stats and film sessions. He knows what they need. He knows their tendencies, their rhythms, their egos, their off nights. He's the coach who watched LeBron beat him in the 2016 finals and came back the next year and won. He's the coach who took this exact roster concept to its highest possible test in Paris and brought home gold. Steve Kerr served as head coach for Team USA, which already provides James some familiarity, as he has played under him before. That familiarity is worth more than people give it credit for. LeBron doesn't come into a new situation without knowing what he's signing up for. With Kerr, he already knows. He's already run the system. He already trusts the voice on the sideline. That removes one enormous layer of adjustment from what would otherwise be an already complex integration. The historical comps for this kind of move give both hope and pause. Golden State used the Curry as closer approach to bring in Kevin Durant back in 2016, so it's not without precedent. But more often than not, recent examples of piling on aging stars, think back to the 2012-13 Lakers or the 2013-14 Nets, haven't exactly worked out. 2 very different data points sitting right next to each other in history. The 2017 Warriors with Durant were the most dominant team of the modern era, a starting lineup that felt genuinely unfair to play against. The 2013 Lakers and 2014 Nets, loaded with veterans, crashed and burned before anyone had really processed that they were supposed to be contenders. The difference in those cases wasn't talent, it was infrastructure. The Warriors have something those teams didn't. A defensive system built on switching and intelligence and communication, a coaching staff that prioritizes culture over ego, and a franchise player in Curry who has never once prioritized his own numbers over the team's success. That's the foundation that could absorb a move this large without collapsing under its own weight. And LeBron's body, The elephant in every room where his future gets discussed deserves a fair accounting. For the first time in his historic 23-year career, LeBron James didn't suit up for the start of an NBA season. The 40-year-old star was expected to miss the first 3 to 4 weeks with sciatica, marking a rare absence for a player whose availability had long defined his greatness. Sciatica, that's a nerve issue, a pain that can be managed but not ignored. The fact that he missed the start of a season for the first time in 23 years tells you the body is starting to write notes in the margins. He's not indestructible anymore if he ever was. At age 40, James is finally yielding some of the spotlight and the grind that comes with maintaining his legendary workload. Known for defying rest days and playing through pain, LeBron is now prioritizing longevity over records for games or minutes played. 60 games played last season. He used to play 80. The load management is real, and it's strategic, keeping the body fresh for the moments that matter rather than grinding through every regular season night. In Golden State, where Curry himself has dealt with knee management and games missed, that kind of approach would be understood and accommodated. Skip Bayless, reliably the loudest voice on the skeptical side of any LeBron conversation, didn't hold back. Skip Bayless warned that a Warriors super team featuring Stephen Curry, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis may struggle to make the playoffs. Rumors that Golden State is looking to form a veteran super team by trading for Anthony Davis and signing LeBron James continue to stir debate across the NBA world. While many, including Bayless, are intrigued by the box office appeal of such a scenario, the NBA analyst doesn't foresee the possible shakeup translating to postseason success. Golden State, that was the actual nickname being floated, mean cutting, and not entirely wrong in its math. You'd be looking at the oldest starting lineup in NBA history, guaranteed. But it's also the kind of dismissal that underestimates what basketball intelligence does at the highest level of the game. Curry doesn't need his legs to be faster than every other player on the court. His mind already got there first. But here's the counter to all of it, the one argument that supersedes every statistical doubt and every age-based concern. If Golden State pulls off its rumored off-season plan and secures a 2027 postseason berth with its core near full strength, Curry's elite shooting, James's playmaking and complementary scoring, Green's defensive tenacity, and Davis's imposing two-way play in the interior, would likely give the team at least a puncher's chance against any opponent. A puncher's chance against anyone. That's what this team would be. Not a dynasty, not a lock, not a safe bet, but a puncher's chance. The kind of chance that, in a single elimination series, in a 7-game format where anything can happen in any given week, is all you ever really need. A LeBron James-Steph Curry partnership with the Warriors would generate about as big of a public splash as imaginable. That's ESPN saying it, not a fan account, not a Reddit thread. ESPN's own insiders saying this would be one of the biggest stories the sport has ever produced. And stories like that don't just draw eyeballs, they draw energy. They pull franchises out of their comfort zones and into something that feels mythological. Golden State isn't the only team in this story. LeBron James is the most coveted free agent on the market, and the league doesn't operate in a vacuum. There are at least 2 other destinations that are very much alive, and each one carries a completely different meaning for how this chapter of his career ends. There has been some speculation that James could opt to return to the Cleveland Cavaliers, to potentially close out his career with his hometown team, where he played the first 7 years of his career and won his 3rd NBA title in 2016. The Cavs reportedly have interest in a second reunion with James, according to insider Chris Haynes. Cleveland, the place where it started, the place where the most famous championship moment of his career, the 3-1 comeback, the block, the shot, the title, happened in a building full of people who had waited their entire lives to feel it. That city has a claim on LeBron that no other franchise can replicate. James is the Cavs' all-time leader in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. His fingerprints are on every major statistical category in that franchise's record book. Coming home to Cleveland to close out a career with a Cavs team that has been one of the Eastern Conference's genuine contenders wouldn't be a retreat, it would be a statement. It would say, this is where my story began, and this is where it ends. But the Cavaliers' pitch has complications that don't exist in the Warriors' version of this conversation. There's speculation that James could opt to return to the Cleveland Cavaliers to potentially close out his career with his hometown team. The Cavs reportedly have interest in a second reunion with James, according to insider Chris Haynes. Have interest is a soft phrase. It means the calls have been made, the box has been checked, But there's nothing approaching the organized, coordinated, Curry on the phone level of pursuit that Golden State is mounting. The Cavs are also a different kind of team than the one LeBron left in 2010 or 2018. They're younger, faster, and built around Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, two guards who operate best when the ball flows through their hands. Adding a 41-year-old LeBron to that offense isn't the same as adding him to a Curry system, where the spacing already exists and the pieces already complement each other. The fit matters. It always matters. Then there's Miami, a city that has its own specific gravitational pull on LeBron James, and always has. The latest odds at the time of publishing listed Cleveland and Golden State, tied at 44% in a Kalshi market for James' next team, with Miami at 9%. 9%. Miami is the longest shot of the credible options, but it's 9% for a reason, not 0%. Pat Riley is still there. The relationship between LeBron and Miami goes all the way back to the decision, to the Big Three, to the back-to-back rings in 2012 and 2013. That chapter of his story is one of the most celebrated in his career, and the city never stopped loving him for it. But Miami has its own off-season headaches. The Giannis Antetokounmpo domino finally fell with his trade to the Miami Heat the day before the draft, which kicked off a flurry of activity. The Heat traded for Giannis. That's enormous. A franchise-altering acquisition that fills the big man void Miami has needed to address for years. But it also means the cap picture in South Beach is complicated. You can't stack Giannis money and LeBron money without making the kind of moves that either gut your depth or create second apron headaches you don't want going into a title run. So what does LeBron actually want? That's the question nobody outside his inner circle can answer with certainty. This marks the third offseason in which James's retirement has been a real possibility. After this season, James made it clear that his decision will be a family matter. With my future, I don't know, James said after Game 4, obviously still fresh from losing. I don't know what the future holds for me, obviously. As it stands right now tonight, I've got a lot of time. I'll sit back like I think I said last year after we lost to Minnesota. I'll go back and recalibrate with my family and talk with them and spend some time with them. That's a man who hasn't decided. That's a man who lost, again, and is sitting with the weight of it, feeling out what the next chapter looks like. He's been here before, after Cleveland, after Miami, after losses and retirements that never actually came. Each time, he came back. Each time he came back hungry. LeBron James is not returning to the Los Angeles Lakers and will sign with a new team after confirming he will play in the 2026-27 season. So the retirement question is settled. He's coming back. The only open question is the jersey. And there's a wrinkle to the Cleveland option that nobody is saying out loud. But everyone is thinking, Bronny? For LeBron, there's still the possibility of sharing an NBA court with both of his sons. His eldest, Bronny, has already made his league debut, while Bryce, a freshman at the University of Arizona, is just beginning his college journey. Bryce James, a freshman at Arizona, LeBron's other son, coming up through college at exactly the pace you'd expect. If LeBron signs somewhere for 1 or 2 more seasons, and Bryce declares for the draft, there's a universe, however small, in which the 3 of them are in the same league at the same time. That kind of legacy consideration doesn't factor into traditional franchise analysis. But LeBron has never been a traditional player. Asked about it at Lakers Media Day, James said with a grin, "I'm not waiting on Bryce. He's his own young man now. He's down in Tucson. We'll see what happens this year or next. He has his own timeline. I've got mine. And I don't know if they quite match up. We'll see." That's the kind of answer you give when the question is real, when you've thought about it, but when you're not ready to commit to it publicly. "We'll see" is LeBron's version of, "I'm keeping that door open." Meanwhile, back on the West Coast, Golden State is not operating like a team that thinks it's in second place on this list. The Warriors have been under the assumption that James will ultimately return to Los Angeles, but they have also taken note of the quiet and seemingly stalled nature of the situation. Stalled negotiations between LeBron and the Lakers. Silence from Pelinka's office. Rich Paul sending calls to 12 different teams. The Warriors read that silence not as he's staying, but as the door is open. And they've had their foot in that door for weeks. The Warriors have whiffed on star pursuits before. In recent years, they attempted to trade for Paul George, Lauri Markkanen, Pascal Siakam, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kawhi Leonard. They pivoted to Butler only after Durant had no interest in a reunion. Now Butler is injured, and Curry's window is smaller. Every name on that list is a missed swing. Every one of those pursuits ended with Golden State watching the player sign somewhere else, or watching a deal fall apart at the finish line. They know how this goes. They've been here before, which is exactly why this time feels different, because this time, Curry himself is making the call, and the people closest to LeBron aren't dismissing it. They're making noise of their own. Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul said, 10 to 12 teams have checked in about adding LeBron this summer, so sign and trade options could also emerge. 10 to 12 teams. Paul said that publicly, on the record, so that every team without a Curry in their corner would feel the heat. It's leverage construction at its most calculated. But it also happens to be true. And among those 12 calls, the Warriors' call carries a weight the others can't. Time will tell if the Warriors are a serious contender to sign James, or if LeBron is simply using Golden State as leverage to get more guaranteed money from the Lakers. However, the Dubs have few easy options to add premium talent to a roster that is sorely lacking exactly that. Even if the odds are low, a Hail Mary to land LeBron is worth a shot. The Hail Mary, that's what this is. A four-time champion throwing a deep pass to the greatest basketball player alive, asking him to become his teammate. In a sport where the regular season matters and the postseason decides everything, one Hail Mary to the right target can turn a franchise's entire story. The question isn't just whether LeBron goes to Golden State. The question is what it means for the sport if he does or if he doesn't. It's uncertain how many more Steph Curry versus LeBron James games the NBA will see. But the league went an entire season without fans watching them battle for basketball supremacy. And that was a loss for the entire game of basketball as a whole. That loss was felt. The NBA is bigger and more global than it's ever been, but it runs on stories. It runs on moments. It runs on the kind of sustained greatness that makes casual fans into obsessives, and obsessives into lifelong believers. Curry and LeBron together in the same lineup, in the same building wearing the same jersey. That's not just a story. That's the kind of thing that reverberates beyond any single season. LeBron James and Stephen Curry have shaped basketball's modern era, defining its rivalries, rewriting its record books, and inspiring the generation that now follows them. Those are the two names at the top of this era's ledger. No argument, no debate, just those two names, side by side, now potentially on the same side of the ledger in a way nobody imagined possible. And there's one more thing. The thing that lives underneath all the contracts and cap figures and roster construction debates. There is also history here. Not just basketball history, personal history. Two men who spent a decade as the sport's defining adversaries, who played each other in 4 finals, who went to 4 Christmas games against each other, who drafted each other for all-star games while trying to eliminate each other in the playoffs, now sitting across from each other in a room and having a different kind of conversation entirely. Not about how to beat the other one, about how to build something together. The Warriors' interest is anchored in James's relationships with Curry, Green and Warriors coach Steve Kerr. Those connections matter. James and Curry played together for Team USA under Kerr, and James has spent years publicly praising Curry's game. Years of public praise, years of mutual respect wrapped in competitive fire. And now, on the first day of free agency, with the whole league watching, Stephen Curry making an announcement. A real, tangible, league source-confirmed announcement that he is coming for LeBron James, not as a rival, but as a recruiter. The last word on what this all means belongs to the players themselves, and both of them have already said it in their own way. The rivalry between LeBron James and Stephen Curry helped take the NBA to new heights. That's the historical fact. Whatever happens next, whether they end up teammates or whether this whole thing collapses under the weight of its own ambition, that fact doesn't change. They took it to heights. Together, they were the force that made the 2010s the most watched, most discussed, most globally relevant decade in the sport's history. LeBron said his pairing with Curry felt effortless because they play basketball the right way. So the Warriors are trying to form the NBA's Expendables, a cast of legends joining forces for one last mission to win one last ring. One last ring. The Expendables in sneakers, Curry and LeBron, and Green and Kerr, and potentially Davis, a summit of greatness assembled in the twilight of careers that have already made history, reaching for one more piece of it. Maybe Golden State actually pulls off the oldest super team ever assembled. Maybe LeBron, AD, Curry, Draymond, and Kerr turn their final acts into one more title run before the credits roll. Maybe. And in the NBA, maybe is enough to make the whole league stop and stare. The announcement is made. The calls are going out. Free agency opens tonight. And the answer, the one answer that determines whether this becomes the greatest late career story basketball has ever told, is somewhere in LeBron James's phone, waiting to be spoken.